Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be located. Welcome to Dbase, What is New from Dbase LLC. My name is Mike Roslog, and I'm the CEO of the company. We have Kathy Koloski on, who's the head of QA and technical support. We have Jeff Getz on, who's the VP of marketing. We have Paul McGee on, who's the VP of sales. Today's agenda for today, we're going to go over Dbase plus 8. Update 2, we're going to go over just a couple of things just to introduce you to some shortcuts and maybe make it so it's easier to use Dbase plus 8 for you if you already have it. If you don't have it, you'll get to see some of the new functionality and capability. We're going to go over the brand new release of dbDOS Pro 2. I'll show you how easy it is to set it up and work with dbDOS Pro 2. We'll also be looking at Debase Data, and that is a data providing service. You may have not heard of it, or you may not have read the press releases on that new service that we have out there. We also have another product that we just released a little bit ago called Dvf Export for working with Dbf files and Dbase files and exporting them out to other formats such as CSV, XML, and Excel format. And we also have a brand new cross-platform tool that's available on Windows Store and also the Apple Mac Store called dTransfer. And this is our new cross-platform products that we're bringing to market as well. So we have a pretty full agenda. We got about 50 minutes worth of time to go over this with you. At any time, if you need to do a question or if you have a question, please look at the GoToMeeting interface. There's a question tab. If you click on that question area, you can type into the question, and one of us will be eager to answer your questions that you may have about anything going on at Dbase right now, anything going on with the products. So please don't hesitate to ask the questions as needed. So with that, let's go ahead and let's kick this off. So on to the demo. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize out of PowerPoint, and I'm going to bring up Dbase. So for most of you, you've already seen Dbase. You know what it looks like. It's the brand new look and feel with the Dbase plus 8 update 2. And as you can see in our current look and feel right now, it is the black look and feel. You can, if you so desire, you can change that. If you don't like the black look and feel, you can make it look a lot more like what it used to back in Dbase 2.81. Now the thing is when you look at this, you'll notice that we've also updated all the graphics, and I just want to show you really quickly how you can go in and modify that look and feel. So if you notice when we're in here, we have on the View menu, we have something called Application Theme. When you go into the application theme, as you see, we're on Office Black right now. We could go into Office Blue. If we click on Office Blue, you'll notice the tabs change. You notice the background changes. You notice the window titles change a little bit. Or if you want to come back in here, look at your application, go to System. You can make it look like System. But it's really up to you. The cool part about it is, or the best part about it is you have the ability now to look at your machines just as you would inside of there. Now, one of the things that I'm going to be looking at today is a graphics product. And one of the new updates to Dbase plus 8.1 is the fact that we have a new graphics engine. Now what I'm going to do is I wanted to kind of show you a couple of things about the Dbase structure that you may not know, or the graphical user interface that may make it easier for you to use Dbase in your day-to-day operations. As you can see, this now looks like Dbase 2.8, where you have the floating windows and you could put the windows wherever you wanted them. And one of the things that we've done is we've made it so that you actually have docking capabilities for your components, your property editors, and also your field palettes, so that you can put them where you need to get the most out of it. Now to actually do this, as you can see I have mine floating right now. To actually do this, you can go ahead and go up to the top of the bar, the title bar, and you can go ahead and click your left mouse button and start dragging it. When you start dragging a window, you'll notice that we get 3 boxes. We have a box over here, a box on the right, a box on the left, and a box in the middle, and you'll see that there's little arrows pointing to where those boxes are located. So if I take my field palette and I go to the right, and I go down to that box, you'll notice that it will go to the right side. If I grab that field palette title and pull it off, it'll make the bar float again. Same thing with the component palette. If I take my component palette, I can take it over here to the side, and it's now attached or docked to the left-hand side. Now, some of the things that you may want to do with this, just as a side note, is that you may want this to, some of them to be showing all the time, some of them not to be showing all the time. And one of the really cool features about this is that you now have the ability to stack your windows and make them work as you would expect. So if I come into here and I start moving it, notice I have this middle one, and when I click on the middle box, it shows over to the left-hand side, and I'll dock that over to the left-hand side. I can then take my component palette, drag it on top of my property editor, and notice that I have three options. I can put it to the top, I can put it as a tab, or I can put it as the bottom. And for this one, I want to go ahead and put it on the bottom. Now again, at any time if I want to pull that off, I can just go ahead and pull it off with the component palette. Now I still have the field palette here still floating around, and if I wanted to, I can go ahead and move that, and notice when I put it onto the component palette, I get a new update that shows that I can put it onto a tab underneath. So if I do that, you'll notice that I have the component palette and the field palette underneath in a tabbed interface, and these are what are docked and opened. So they're docked and they're maximized. So you can look at them, you can interact with them, do everything that you want. Now if I want to pull the field palette or the component palette away, all I do is click on the field palette and drag it into the screen, and again, it's starting to float again. If I want to, I can also make this, so if we move this up just a little bit, I'll move this up, and then if I want, I can also put this on the bottom like so, so that I have my property editor, I have my component palette, and I have my field palette all ready to go in line. Now for me, I'm not real this is fine, this is great, this is much better than what it used to be with the windows floating in my opinion, but I actually like mine to be actually hidden, so I only use them when I want them, and I only see them when I want them. So to do that, all you have to do is come up here and click on your little tab over on your little stick pin on your title bar and click it. And when you click that little stick pin, it'll automatically put the tab over on the left-hand side or wherever you dock it. It'll put it on that side, and it'll put it in a little window for you. So if I come in here and I click on my component palette on the stick pin, it'll put it over there, and if I do the same thing on my field palette, it'll put it over there, and it gives me the maximum size then for looking at my screen. Now, anytime I want to look at those property or component palette or any of those windows, I can literally just move my mouse over top of those tabbed areas, and the palette will automatically expand and let me interact with it. I can change things inside of here. I can come in here and change the status message if I want to. Now another thing you may want to do is you may want it to stick. So if you click it, it'll automatically stay out there for you so that you don't have to readjust it and things like that. I find this way a little bit easier to use just because it's always out of the way. I know where my palettes are at, and I can always just go put my cursor over top of them, and I can see exactly which ones that I want and how that I want them. Now again, if you don't want them to be hidden like they are, you can go up to that thumbtack again and click it, and notice how it automatically expanded the window out and it locked it in place. So that component palette is not going to move now, no matter what I do. Now I can still put my other palettes over top of it. I can still put the edit over top of it, but the actual component palette itself is not going to move. If I want to hide it again, I can just click that stick pin, and that's going to do it. Now another thing we've done inside of Dbase plus 8.1 is the fact that we also updated the graphics engine. Now that graphics engine is the engine that's actually embedded into the Dbase product and also the Dbase runtime. What this allows you to do, as you can see on my screen, it allows you to basically put almost any graphic type on or display any graphic type inside of your Dbase applications. And of course we have the Glyphics, the Perth Web agreement with them where we ship a bunch of really good cutting edge modern icons in different formats, in different styles, so that you can use them and modernize your application and make sure that your Dbase applications look just like all the other applications out there, modern, ready to use, and all that. So we support all the standard features, whether it's a ping, whether it's a bitmap, whether it's icons, whether it's animated GIFs. All of them are supported out of the box with really no major changes to it. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to Kathy, who's going to go over a couple of other features inside of Dbase +8. So I'm going to pass it over to Kathy here. And let me make her the presenter. Kathy, we cannot hear you if you're talking.
Okay, sorry, can you hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry. I thought we were back to the other, well, it's there, but Dbase is working, so. All right, the first thing I want to show you is I want to talk about the SQL query builder real quick. But before I actually build the query, I just want to show you the data that I'm going to be working with. I have a table here. Oops, I'm under tables. I have a table here that has a list of the top 500 companies, their stock information, their sector information, industry information, and of course sub-industry codes and sub-industry names. So what I want to do is I decided I want to first do a query first based on the actual sector. So I want to order it by sector, and then after ordering it by sector, I want to order it by industry. So I'm going to close out of here, and I'll go into the SQL Query Builder to do that. So I'll go ahead and double-click. And I'm going to go ahead and choose, I could just use the Windows directory to find the Dvf file, or I can use the BDE alias that was set up that points to whichever directory, whatever database I'm working with. So I have a database called SMP, and we'll go ahead and add that database. And then I'll just double-click. There's only one table in the database right now. You would have a list here of all the tables that you have currently in that database or in that directory. And I'll just double-click to add it. And I'm just going to go ahead and add, first of all, just all of the fields by clicking on this next to where the asterisk is in the checkbox. And in order to do the sorting that I want on the particular fields that I want, I go down here and I have to add another what's called an expression. The first expression just includes all of the fields in the table, and then after that I want to first do the sort by sector. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the drop down and find the field that I want to do the first sort by, and that is, you can do sector code or sector name, it doesn't matter, they're both unique, but I'll say sector code, and the sort type I want is ascending, and the sort order tells me that it's going to sort by that field first. So then after that, the next thing I want to do is I want to sort by industry name. So I go down here and I find the industry name value, and I add the ascending sort type, and that's the second field that it's going to sort by. And then I'll go ahead and first kick this off so we can just see what we have here. Now first you'll notice that on the left under output, each one of these expressions is checkmarked, which means that first you're going to see all of the fields as they show in the raw table, and then you're going to see these two fields again because they're included in the output. And this alias that you see is giving it another field name or column name because it's also included here where all of the fields are included initially. So in order to show you that, I'm just going to close and save this. We'll just call this S&P. All right, so I'll go ahead and run that SQL file, and you'll notice here that we have all of the fields just like it is in the raw table. All the fields are in the same order, in the same column order, but the data is separated by sector code first. So you have the sector codes, and then by industry name. So for one particular sector, there's all the aerospace, then air freight, airlines, etc. And then after that, we're going to sort by the actual stock name, the actual individual company name. So we'll close out of there, and I also want to change the way that this information is viewed because the columns are kind of all over the place. I really want to see the sector code first, then the industry name, then the stock name, and then the rest can follow after that. So we'll close out of there, and I'll go back, right-click, and you can go into Design. So in order to see, also I just wanted to show you real quick, I included those two, when I did the sort on those, these two fields were included a second time. So when I actually run this query, and you can do it up here from the toolbar as well, not only is the sector code here in the natural order of the table, but it's also been included a second time at the end of the table as sector code 1. We don't really need that. So to get rid of it, and I'll go back into the designer, we just take it out of the output. So anything that you don't want to show in the output, but you just want to include it as part of the expression, as part of the SQL statement, you can just take that, uncheck it from the output section. So now I want to order by sector code, industry name, and then by the actual stock. Okay, but I want to see those first. So I am going to take this, and now I can leave all of the fields there and then go ahead and include these in the beginning. And if I want to see these first, then I can go ahead and move them up. Just grab this little handle to the left and move them up. So I have the sector code, then industry name, and then stock name. And then I'll go ahead and run this real quick, save our changes, and that way we have those criteria fields that we created, sector code 1, then the industry, and you'll see it's all been ordered properly, then by the stock name. Oops, stock name 1. Okay, energy, oh, I don't think it saved that. That wasn't ordered, so. Oh, stock name, I didn't put the actual sorting on that. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and run it again. Okay, so we have by sector code, then industry name, and then ordered by stock name, and of course all the rest of the fields follow after that. Now the next thing I want to do is, maybe I don't want to see all of the data here. I don't want a sector code 10 to sector code 30 doesn't interest me. Really all I want is from 40 on up. So I'm going to go ahead and add another condition to our SQL statement. And the next condition is going to be that I want this sector code to be greater than 40. And just move off of there to go ahead and save it, and then I'll go ahead and run it. Okay, so now I only have those sector codes that are from 45 on up. So I have 45, basically there's only two that exist there. There's 45 and 50. Now let's say that I want to do not just the ones that are greater than 40, but I also want to do maybe the ones between 30 and 50. Well, if you notice here, to do additional criteria, the only option in these other columns is OR. If you want to do an AND, let's say I want to do greater than 35 and less than 55. Well, all you need to do is add another expression line to do an AND statement, basically. So we'll say greater than 35, and sector code less than, we'll say 50. I don't need this in the output. I'm just going to take that out. I just want it as part of the SQL statement so I can have the correct data that I need. And we'll go ahead and run it. Okay, so now I have from 40 on up to anything before 50. Another real quick thing I want to show you is since I've done that using just the designer in the SQL builder. But let's say that I have a query component on a form and I just want to be able to write my own SQL statement. I don't want to use the SQL file. I just want to use the SQL statement and put it in the SQL property of the query. Well, you can kind of learn how to write your SQL statements by looking at the actual source code of the SQL file. So if you right-click and then you go into Open in Source Editor, this actually shows you from the beginning to the end of the select statement how that was done. So it's another kind of learning tool to help you learn how to write your select statements as well. Now there's one more quick query that I want to do, and that is I want to do a query where if we look at the data, all I want to do is I want to do some calculations on I want to find out how many there are of each sector code, let's say. So I want to close out of there and I'll just start a new SQL statement. And this time I'll just go ahead and use the pathway and double click to add the table. And I'm going to include the sector code and the sector name. That's all the information that I really want to see in there. And I want to do an aggregate on the sector code where I'm just doing a count on how many of each sector code there are. But I also want to see its name so that I know which one it is, what I'm working with. So I'll go ahead and I'll click the run, and we'll go ahead and save this. And then we'll call this S&P count. Okay, so now I have a count of each sector and how many there are. So for this particular sector, consumer discretionary, there's actually 89 rows of that particular item. And it's useful information, but let's say I want to do even subsets of that. So let's say I want to do a count of the sector, but then within each sector I want to do another count of, let's say, let me look at the raw data here. I want to do a subset count after the sector of the industry, of each industry within each sector. So we'll go ahead and go to the SQL designer again, and here's our S&P count. Go into the designer, and I just want to add another count to that. So we'll go ahead and we're going to do this on the industry name, and I want to move this up. No, I'll leave it right there. I'll leave it right after that. And I'm going to leave the count on the sector code because we're just doing a count on the sector code, but since we've added another field as part of the expression, it's going to actually do a count drilled down to each industry name. So if we go ahead and we run this, yes. Now, not only do we have a count of the just one whole sector, but we actually have a count of each industry. So for auto components, there's 2 lines. For automobiles, there's 3 lines, and on and on and on. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of some of the stuff that you can do with the query. I'll show you real quick again too, just doing a quick parent-child relationship because we haven't really done that yet. And I'm going to do that using the Dbase samples data. Okay, and in here I'm going to add orders, and then order items is a detail of each order. And to create a very simple parent-child relationship, you just click on the parent. There's multiple ways to do it, but here's a quick visual way to do it. Click on the parent tables field and then just drag it over to the child tables field. And we can go ahead and we'll include this field in the result set, customer ID, and then let's say for the order ID and item number and price. So we'll go ahead and run that. Okay, so here we have, of course, the order ID from the parent table, and then the individual information from the child table to the right. The order of the columns is the same as the order of the fields as you add them into each row in the SQL Designer. Okay, so now that we've looked at SQL, the only other thing I want to show you in Dbase currently is just quickly connecting how to set up a connection alias in Dbase. ADO was included for Dbase. It's the ActiveX data object model from Microsoft. It's based on the COM model, and we've added that to Dbase so that you can connect to other data that the BDE, which the Dbase uses as its data engine, can't get to. Things like Unicode characters and stuff like that, or Unicode field types. So in order to just simply create a connection to an external database, if you go to Properties, and then you go to Desktop Properties, and then we go down here to Connection Aliases, there's a couple ways we can do this. We can go in here and let's say we want to add a connection to our Firebird data. I have one that's already been created. Get rid of that. We'll go to the one that I have currently just so I can show you basically how it was done. If we go ahead and click on, first you add the alias name you want to use, and you click on this little pencil, and then in here you can include your connection statement. Now there's two ways to actually come up with a connection statement, two main ways. One is just to write it yourself, and the other is to use a Microsoft UDL file. Now to create a UDL file is very simple. I'll go in here and I'll show you one that I have. Okay, where's my UDL? Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll look at this MySQL test UDL file. First, to create a new one is very simple. It's actually built in Microsoft. I can't remember starting with which operating system, but certainly in any of the new ones from Vista on up, you would have this. So if you go to New and you just start a new text document, and I'll call this Test 1, and then change the TXT to UDL, and then of course, yes, I want to change it. That automatically sets up a new UDL file, and then to modify it, just double click it, and right off the bat, the Data Link Properties dialog brings you up to the Connection tab, where they're assuming, if you go back here to the provider, the first thing it does is it assumes you're using the OLADB provider for SQL Server to connect to a SQL Server database, which you might not be doing. If you set up an ODBC DSN instead, what you would need to do then is go to this Provider tab, click on the OLADB provider, which is what ADO uses to connect with, and for ODBC drivers. So if you have an ODBC DSN set up, click on that, and then you go to Connections. And this is where you can choose, it'll find those DSNs that you have already set up. And you can go ahead and choose whatever DSN it is you're working with. You include your username and password, which I can't remember what mine was right now. And then you would test your connection and find that it's set up. I'll do one here I have a MySQL one set up. Okay, and then you click Test Your Connection, and then it tells you if it succeeded or not. So then you say OK, and that creates a new UDL file. So another way to create your connection string is to use that UDL file. So let's say I want to do a new, that was MySQL, so I'll call this MySQL, test 1. And I can just, probably don't need to do that, but I want to grab the UDL file, And here's my test 1 UDL. And what it does is if you go ahead and click on load, it gives you that statement that you had, the connection statement that you create. Now I pulled that out real quick because there's other information. Another way to do a quick connection statement or to find out how to write your own connection statement is with a really good site called www.connectionstrings.com. Whoops, it's connection strings, not string. Or actually maybe, there we go. And you can choose whatever type of database you're trying to connect to, and it will give you a sample. Like let's say if you're using, let's just say Dvf or FoxPro, and it gives you all kinds of samples of connection strings based on whatever it is you're trying to do, if you're doing it over a server or over a network or whatever. So that's just another way to connect to data that the BDE can't handle. So if we go to our test that we created, the MySQL test is one of them. Then of course we can go in here and we can view any of the data some of which we can't view through the BDE. So that's it. That's just a quick rundown of how to connect to external data using ADO. I believe we're going to move on here to dbDOS Pro 2, and Mike's going to give you a quick look at that.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm going to make myself the presenter, and we will continue on here. So now hopefully you can see my screen. What we're going to be doing now is looking at dbDOS Pro 2. And the big difference between dbDOS Pro 2 and dbDOS is the first thing, it's 100% faster. The second thing is we've actually updated the look and feel a little bit. So, let's say that I wanted to come out and I want to create a new configuration. So I'm going to be running a DOS version of Dbase on the latest hardware and software from Microsoft. So somebody's running Windows Vista, somebody's running Windows 7, somebody's running Windows 8, somebody's running Server 2008, somebody's running Server 2012. They're doing something with it that way. Currently, because Microsoft removed the DOS kernel in those operating systems, you cannot run Dbase for DOS on those operating systems. dbDOS Pro 2 allows you to do that. So what I want to do is I actually want to create a new configuration going out, and let's connect to Dbase 4 and see what we can do. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say create a new config, and for this example I'll come in and put in my configuration name and I'll say Dbase DOS 4, and the description is example, and then I'm going to hit next. I'm going to come into here, it's going to say, okay, can you mount a drive, and I can mount the drive. So I'm going to come into my C prompt, and I'm going to go to where that is located. Now I have a Dbase 4 directory, and if I open that up, you'll see that I have a Dbase 4, and I'm just going to go ahead and click it onto that Dbase 4 directory. When I do that, that's going to become my C drive for dbDOS. Now from there, I can click my little home button, and this is going to show what all executables are in that directory that I could pick and run. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and pick Dbase, and I'm going to say OK. Now that I've done that, I can say next. I can set where I'm located, my code. I can set up my printing functionality out to the latest and greatest printers. I can set up and make my screen size different to make it bigger. I can also then create the shortcut on the window, and I'm going to go ahead and hit finish. What you should notice is we have a dbDOS 4 right down here, and we also have a dbDOS 4 inside of our configuration manager. Now a couple of things about this is now if I come in here and double click on it, you'll notice here in a second that it'll kick off the actual Dbase 4 product here in a second, and it will start up and we'll be working inside of Dbase 4, and it'll, we can do whatever we need to do inside of Dbase 4. Now a couple of things about running Dbase 4 and all the things around that is that you have all of your control centers. You can always get out to your dot prompt in Dbase 4 DOS. You can do whatever you need to do to get to that location. But again, just wanted to show you really quickly coming in and using it. Now again, notice that my mouse is working inside of Dbase 4 inside of the window. And so I can do all kinds of things. Click on the exit and then exit back to DOS. Now when I'm in here, this is basically just a DOS environment, so I could do a dir asterisk period .exe and all the things that you would normally see. So I want to say dbf info. I can come in here, see which see how things are looking, and I can work just like you normally would. Now a couple of things I want to share with you. So I'm going to go out and look at Dbase 5. And Dbase 5 is the last version of Dbase for DOS that was released. And what I want to do is I want to show you some advanced features that we have inside of the functionality. And why is that taking as long as it is? Well, let me go back into my config, and let me just grab another one down here. And let me go down to Dbase 5. I believe this will bring me into Dbase 5. And get us set up here. So here we go, and so there we go. Dbase 5 up and running, ready to go. Now the thing is that some of the advanced features that we've added to dbDOS Pro 2 is the ability to do cut, copy, and paste from both Windows into DOS and from DOS back into Windows. So that's one of the things that we really had trouble doing in the initial one. We didn't know how we could do that because there really isn't a clipboard process inside DOS. So we came up with a solution we think is fairly elegant, and the way you would manipulate or the way you would do certain things inside of the product is you would come out to your dbDOS system windows, that icon up in the top left-hand corner, and click on it. When you do that, you can do things like About. You can also see that you have additional features such as print or paste from Windows, print dbDOS Clipboard, and I'll explain each one of these really quickly, and then print the print screen. And there's a lot of people that wrote Dbase DOS programs where they would just hit the Control P and that would automatically print that screen out. We've now added that functionality, but anytime you want to, you can come in here, click on it, and you'll notice that we get the picture of it. You can save it as a bitmap. You can put it into the clipboard. You can print it out. You can do with it whatever you want. Now, we also have the ability to copy into, so I might come into here and I might want to open up something and I might want to say date, question mark, date, open, close parentheses, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight that, and I'm going to copy it with a Control-C, and now I want to paste that into my command. So I can come in and paste from Windows. Notice it put the question mark date from my process, and if I hit enter, there you'll see 9/25/2013. So I've actually pasted from the Windows clipboard into a DOS program. Now I could also come into here and load up a program, and we'll go ahead and open this up, and I'll say I want to look at T-memory. And as the T-memory comes up, I want to go ahead and I want to turn on print to clipboard. So I'm going to print this out to the clipboard. So when I click on this, you'll notice that here in a second, it'll pop up with a window with anything that was going to be printed out. It'll come up with a window. Now I can print this to the printer. I can save it in a clipboard if I so desire, or I can highlight whatever lines that I want, hit Control-C, come back into my notepad area, and come down here, hit Control-V, and there's all the information copied from a DOS process into a Windows process. So we now have cut, copy, and paste from Windows to DOS and from DOS into Windows. So that's a pretty unique structure. So that kind of gives you an idea behind what you can do with dbDOS. And again, the great part about dbDOS is you hook up your regular printers and it prints out to the latest and greatest printers. So when I'm done with this, I can go ahead and say exit, and then I'm going to just exit out of here, and that kind of gives you the idea for dbDOS. The next thing that we want to show really quickly is functionality that we have inside the product called Debase Data. Now this is something you may or may not be aware of. This is basically a data repository, and what we try to do with Debase Data is to fill in the gaps where your data may not have everything that you need. And as you could see from Kathy's explanation of SQL Builder, She was using something called S&P 500, which is a list of companies and stocks for the stock exchange. Now, we have a lot of different data categories out there, whether it be the census, crime, energy, utilities, government, healthcare, lookup, voting. So we have a lot of different things out there. You can go into, let's say, the crime, and if you click onto the crime, it'll automatically bring you into all the crime structures. You can also switch to a box view, which would make this so that it'll show you the crime in a different format. But let's say I wanted to look at the crime for Chicago. I could click on that, and what this will do is it'll come in and explain exactly what the data has in it. It'll give me a sample of the data, and as you can see, there is 319,000 records inside of this one, and it basically shows me just a little set of the records, and then I have a data dictionary that explains all of the data below, where they start, what they are, what kind of data type they are, so that you can interact and use them very quickly and very easily from inside of there. So we have a lot of different data sets out there, and for this one I'm going to look for S&P, and I think it's that one. It might be S&P altogether. Yep, it was S&P altogether. So S&P like that. And here in a second, you'll notice there is the S&P 500, the data set that Kathy was using. Now, again, when you see this, we have 500 rows in this. You can see what the ticker, the stock name, exactly what Kathy was showing you. And then again, there's the data dictionary below. When you go ahead and add this to cart and buy it, then it looks a little different. So if we go into our system in here, we can go into Debase Data, and what you would get is you would normally get a zip file from us with all of the data sets in it. And when you unzip or uncompress the files, what you would get inside of there is, of course, the user agreements. You would get a HTML explaining with the data dictionary what it is, but you also get it with the dBF format. You get it with the SQLite format, and you also get it with the Excel spreadsheet format. So the data is in 3 usable forms ready to be used however you want to use that data. And that data is yours to do with it whatever you want after you purchase it. And really what we're doing is we're doing all the packaging, all the data manipulation, and all that kind of stuff for you. Now, once you have that, then what you can do is you can use a utility like we have with dBF Utility, which we just announced about a month ago. And so if I come in here to dBF Export, which is one of the dBF utilities, now this is, remember, focused on dBF files specifically. So it really focuses on .dbf files. When this comes up, what this will basically allow me to do is it'll allow me to transfer data from one data type from the dBF either to XML, CSV, or Excel format. So to do this, I can come in. The first thing it's going to ask me is, do I want to use a BDE alias, or do I just want to point to the file system? And for this one, I just want to point to the file system. I come in, and it's going to ask me where I'm going to point to that, and I want to find that in the dBF inside of the companies where I was at. So I'm going to come in here, click on the dBF on the companies, and say import file. When I click on the import file, it'll add it in, and then I'm going to say next. Once I'm into the destination format, then it's going to ask me what do I want to format this as. Well, I want to format this as CSV, so I'm going to click on CSV, I'll get my check mark, and then I'm going to come in and click on my area, and I'm going to call this SP example. And then I'm going to go ahead and say create. When I do that, it's going to show me the full directory structure where it's going to save it, and then I hit next. At the end of that, I have something for copy to clipboard, and this basically shows me what file types I'm using, what I'm transferring, what the original names were, when the date and time that it was done. So if I want to keep this information, so I could say copy to clipboard here, click on that button, go into my notepad area, come down here, and then I can save that off saying, hey, this is exactly what I did when I did it from a log perspective. When I'm ready to go with the things that I want to do, I can go ahead and say do export, and here in a second it'll come back and say CSV file creation and export is complete. When I say OK, you'll notice a new button shows that says show in folder. When I click on that show in folder, you'll notice that it will start up a new Explorer, and it will automatically bring us in, and there's the CSV format. Now, one thing you'll notice inside of here is right now it is comma delimited. In future releases, we'll probably give you the ability to set the character and also to set a couple of other things with each one of the output types. Right now, you can do a copy, replace, and just take out the commas and put in whatever delimiter you want in there. But again, that's just to show you really quickly how easy and how fast it is to set that up. Like I said before, you can come in, go back to the start page and start going through the wizard again and continue to migrate out your data whichever way you want. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm now going to pass this over to Jeff, who's going to talk to you about our cross-platform solutions with data. So give me 1 second here while I pass this over to Jeff. Okay, Jeff?
Yes, hello, Mike. Do you hear me?
I do.
Great. As you'll notice, this does not look like your typical Windows desktop, and that is because it is not. This is the first endeavor that Dbase LLC has made in doing cross-platform development for some of our database tools, and this application, dTransfer, is running on Mac OS X. With dTransfer, what you can do is you can take a table from one of the supported databases, and on Mac we support MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQLite, and on Windows we additionally support the MS SQL Server database. And you can take a table from any database that you have the connection string properties to connect to and copy them to any other database that you also have the connection string properties to copy to. So what I'm going to do is show you how this interface works. And I'm going to select the SQLite database, the SQLite database that we've been using so far, and that is the companies, the S&P 500 companies. I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and here's the table within that database that I am looking to copy over to another database. So I'll say next. I'm going to copy that to another SQLite database, which happens to be my company's SQLite database. I'm going to leave the table name the same. I could change the table name if I wanted it to be something different inside of my database. And here is the summary of what is about to happen. It says the source that it's coming from, the S&P 500 SQLite database, the destination database that it's going to, and the destination table name that it's going to go to. So I can go ahead and start the transfer for that. And here you'll see that it is copying each one of the records. As it is doing this, it has already created the table transfer. And dTransfer will handle the type mappings between the different databases. So if there's a different type that needs to be switched for the different numerics and the different data types that are supported in the databases, dTransfer will take care of that when it creates the DDL for the table at between the source and the destination. So that is the first of the Dbase apps series that we have. The website that you can go to learn about that is dbaseapps.com, and you'll see the dTransfer app that we have out there. Pretty soon we'll be adding a few more apps, cross-platform apps that we're working with the database. Again, you could buy this for the Windows platform or in the Mac App Store. And if you happen to be running Windows 8, you can search for dTransfer, and you will see the link to dTransfer in the Windows 8 store as well. And with that, I turn it back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Jeff. And just to reiterate where Jeff was at, you can see from my standpoint right here is that I'm running dTransfer on my current box as well, and this is of course a Windows 7 box. I can come in, I can select the database just the way Jeff selected the database, and when we do that, it'll come up and I can say I want to take my SQLite database and I want to do the S&P 500 just like what Jeff was using. I can pick that S&P 500. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the screen for a second, and I'm going to go out to my SQL, and I'm going to type in my server address and actually transfer this into a actual another server across the network just from that standpoint. So give me 2 seconds here, and I will put this back down, and give me a second, and connect. There we go. And I want to go into ADO test, and I'm going to call this, let me go ahead and turn back this back on. And so now you should be able to see my screen with all the stuff. And I'm going to keep it just as I have. I got it in the database. This is going to be using an MySQL database. And I'm going to come in here. We have the dBF test. We can put it into the ADO test directory, and then I'm going to say next. As you can see, I'm going to be taking that S&P 500 from our directory, just like what Jeff showed you. And instead, this time, I'm going to put it into our database out there. And as you can see, it's transferring that database as we speak, and it's actually going out across the network to an Amazon server and starting to do the work with that. So here in a second, when this is done, you'll see that all the records were transferred over, and we have 500 records of 500 records. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what we're doing along the arena of cross-platform applications as well. Now, to finish this off, just really quickly here, I want to just bring this back up, and we'll continue on with, we do have a current sale going on right now. If you have not purchased Dbase Plus 8.1, you can basically get it now for 20% off if you're buying a new license, or you can get it for 10% off if you're buying an upgrade. No better time to upgrade than right now. We would love to see you guys come in and purchase. Like Jeff said, if you want to get a hold of the D-Transfer product, that's available out on iTunes or out on the Mac Store and also out on the Windows Store, and you can also buy it from the dbaseapps.com directory. The Dvf utility or Dvf Export is available from dbase.com, and of course dbDOS Pro 2 is available from dbDOS or from dbase.com, and you can purchase that as well. We do also have sales on bundles at this current time as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and say thank you, but the big thing is if there's any questions. Right now, I don't see any questions in the current question setup, so if anybody has any questions, you can go to the GoToMeeting interface, click on the questions area, and if you have any questions, you can type in a question, and you have 4 main people inside of the company that are here to answer any of the questions that you may have. And I'll let that open for a few seconds here. So with that, if no one has any questions at all, we're going to go ahead and end the session. I'll let it go one more time. Anybody have any questions? There we go. We had somebody type in thanks. So I'll take it that all the questions have been answered from the thing. Hopefully you guys have had a good time. Hopefully you did learn a couple of things. We do actually have a question about dbDOS. Go ahead and type in the question that you have, and we will answer that. So, and the question is dbDOS a emulator? It is a VM. It is a DOS VM or a DOS virtual machine, and it is an emulation of a cleanroom DOS executable. So yes, it is a DOS emulator, but it's a DOS VM, so it's a virtual machine, and it runs independently of the operating system that it's currently running on. So yes, and it is a VM and runs independent of the OS. All right, next question. So you could run a DOS application under it? Absolutely. You can actually run Lotus 123. You can run WordPerfect. A lot of those applications run fine with it underneath of that. So absolutely, you can run other. Yes, you can run other DOS applications on it. Okay. I got another one. Will the BDE be replaced something better in dBase? Well, we've taken one step with ADO, and I hope in the future that we will have something different than the BDE. That kind of holds us back on a couple of other things. So ADO is current, and we look to replace it sometime in the future. Replace the BDE in the future. Not in the current version, but sometime in the future. I think the dbDOS is 64-bit. Absolutely, you can the 64-bit version of it. You can absolutely run it on 64-bit, 32 or 64-bit versions of the operating system. Okay. And then what about dBase? dBase would be a Embarcadero product. So if you need to get anything about Embarcadero, that would be at www.embarcadero.com, and they would be the sellers of the Debase database. So that would be www.embarcadero.com. Boom. All right, and with that, excellent. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. We've enjoyed it. Thanks a lot for listening, and I hope you guys have a great night, great day, great morning, wherever you guys may be located. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.